Hello everybody, you're very welcome back to Law Hero. My name is Jen and I make videos about the law, and today we're going to talk about something I'm very interested in. It is why some people have an advantage over others when it comes to anything in life. It's just a general topic. Having an advantage is always favourable, but why do some people have an unfair advantage when it comes to certain areas of life? What is an unfair advantage? And it comes from the book with the same title. So the concept of the unfair advantage, it's not just about the resources or the capabilities at one's disposal, but also encompasses intrinsic factors like grit, perseverance, hustle, talent, passion, and discipline. And I think all of those words are words you hear on YouTube a lot, especially if you subscribe to self-improvement, or if you subscribe to, anything where there's entrepreneurial leanings or tendencies, or, you yourself want to become an entrepreneur, you'll hear these words. However, as the author points out, success is not solely a product of meritocracy. So I'm really interested in this. A few years ago, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago during COVID, I heard a seminar by Alain de Botton from the School of Life. He's like a modern philosopher. But he was talking about meritocracy. So basically, the harder you try, the more likely it is you'll be successful. But unfortunately, modern life is not a meritocracy. That's the problem. Some bad people do really well, and we know that. Like, look at Trump. Now, he's probably a bad example, but he did very well, even though everything he did was not necessarily on merit. And he was talking about, Alain de Botton was talking about how in our modern life, because we've strayed away from religion, our religion now is productivity and hustle culture. And we, rightly or wrongly, attribute directly someone's success to their hard work. Now, of course, if somebody is like a nepo baby, or their parents were wealthy, we will say that. But those grey areas where you don't have a wealthy parent and you're still successful, we tend to discount a lot of the things that get people where they are. So, for example, that they knew somebody, had connections, right place, right time. But the biggest factor we discount is luck. And luck, when you hear luck is where hard work meets preparation or opportunity, luck has become something that we don't really talk about anymore in society. We really discount luck now. And it's to our detriment, because Alain de Botton was saying, back in the old days when people were super religious, if somebody fell on hard times, they would go, oh, fortune didn't favour them. They had this idea of the goddess Fortuna. You were in fortune's favour, which meant that if things were going well for you, it was because the goddess Fortune was looking after you. And if things weren't going well for you, you were down on your luck. There was that phrase. Whereas nowadays, if things aren't going well for people, we go, sure, they're not working hard enough. Oh, they just need to do a bit of extra work. It'll turn around for them. But we don't talk about luck. That's just the point I wanted to make. So that's the meritocracy piece. And then factors such as family wealth, connections, education, and even geographical and societal positioning can provide a significant unfair advantage. So I was just in McDonald's, and obviously I'm not at home, I'm in Portugal, but there was Indian workers there cleaning the floors, and it hadn't occurred to me that they don't speak Portuguese, only when I saw them use the kiosk, the McDonald's kiosk in English. And I thought to myself, like, what a disadvantage to be in a country and not being able to speak the language. Like, it's hard enough not being from this country and looking distinctly Indian so people know you're different. But aside from that, not being able to converse with the locals in their own language, you're at such a disadvantage when it comes to integration. On the other side, them being able to speak English means they'd probably be better off in an English-speaking country, like strategically, if they want to get ahead. So yeah, I just think it was interesting, and I think it is definitely something that we don't consider, like how lucky we are as English-speaking people, how much more opportunity we have, how much more social mobility you have if you speak English. There's just so much more opportunity. So it just occurred to me earlier. It's an unfair advantage. So an unfair advantage then is a unique identifiable asset that propels individuals or businesses into favorable positions without necessarily being unethical or illegal. So it's an advantage that's allowed, but it gives you an edge on your competition, be it you or businesses. Okay, so how to identify if you have some kind of unfair advantage? This is the bit we're looking for. So in the book, they talk about the Miles framework, which is M for money, I for intelligence or insight, L for location or luck, E for education or expertise, and S for status, MILES. And this offers a structured approach to try and find out what your unfair advantage is. And this is really important. Like, for example, if I spoke about the Indian people living in Portugal, if they ask themselves, what characteristics or traits that I have now would align with my future goal? So for example, when it comes to intelligence/insight, I am not great at mathematical problems. I am not great at addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Therefore, in my future, aligning myself with a job that requires maths is probably not in line, or it's probably not an advantage to me in the long term. What would be more advantageous to me when it comes to insight is to play into my natural ability. So once you start auditing yourself with this Miles framework, you can begin to understand the tangible assets and also the intangible qualities that contribute to one's competitive edge. For example, status, as defined by sociologist Pierre Bourdieu, encompasses economic, cultural, and social capital impacting one's perceived ability to add value. So that is why having a profession gives you an edge, gives you status. That is why being from a certain place or being someone's child elevates your status without you having to do anything. That's why you have people sending their children to certain schools, because they know the status that's connected with those schools will give their children an unfair advantage, perceived unfair advantage. So identifying your unfair advantage involves a deep dive into these dimensions, understand your personality traits, and recognize the unique combination of factors that set you apart. And the other thing I would implore upon all of you to do is do a Myers-Briggs or do some kind of personality test, because a lot of the time people are in professions or people are in situations that just don't suit them and they're misaligned. Like, there's constant drama, they're constantly depressed, there's always something wrong. And a lot of the time it's because you don't fit the situation or the situation doesn't fit you, okay? And the easiest way, I think, this is my opinion, the easiest way to get through all of that, find the right partner, find the right job, align yourself with the right things, is by knowing yourself, spending a lot of time understanding yourself. Understand your personality, understand your trauma, understand your triggers, understand what kind of people you like, what you like to do, how you recreate, what you like and dislike. Once you've figured all of that out, then it's time to start ticking off the boxes. But I personally don't believe And there is some exceptions, of course. Other people can assist you in growth, but I don't think there can be any alignment in the world until you have understood yourself. That's my personal opinion. Okay, so the next part then is developing your unfair advantage. So leveraging what you have. If we think of the Miles framework again, the M stands for money. If you don't have money, you have time. I remember that from Gary Vaynerchuk. And I remember when during COVID, when I was struggling a little bit with money, I remember saying to myself, I have way more time and that time can make me money. So if you don't have money, you have time and you can use that time to make money. That's one way around it. There's different scenarios that lend themselves to making more money. Like for example, when I started off, it was minimum wage. I started off making €5.60 an hour. Then I was able to leverage that little bit of money so that I could do different courses, like do water safety or whatever. Then once I had the water safety courses, I was able to do lifeguarding. Then there was more money coming from lifeguarding. Then with that money, I was able to pay for rent to go to college. And then because I was in college, I was able to get a law degree, etc. So you can see how every single time I was able to leverage the money I had. Now, it wasn't just money. Obviously, there was other supports coming. But you get the point I'm trying to make. When it comes to intelligence or insight, the biggest way you can become more intelligent or gain more insight is through aggregators of information. Somebody like me. So if you listen to my content or you listen to other aggregators online, you're able to get the quick distilled information and then apply it accordingly. You can do that through reading books, attending courses, etc., etc. The more education and pattern spotting you do, the more intelligent you become and the more insightful you become, the quicker you are at spotting patterns and moving through life much faster than people who haven't taken the time to be insightful. That's how I see it. When it comes to location and luck, certainly in Ireland, my opinion is if you're not in Dublin, you're not close to innovation. It's just the most innovative place in the country. It's where all the big corporates are. If you want to work in big corporate, you should be in Dublin. Of course, there's exceptions like Galway, Limerick, Cork, but I'm just saying in general. Then if you want to be with the mega big corporates, you need to be in London, Paris, New York. That being said, we have some of the biggest corporates in the world in Dublin. So in my personal opinion, there's no need to move to those other cities. We actually have a massive unfair advantage in Ireland because of how many of the international corporates are with us, but that would be location. It's also quite lucky for us as young Irish people that all the corporates have decided to come to Ireland because of our tax treaty and our educated workforce, etc., etc. That is certainly lucky as a young Irish person, and I acknowledge that. Then the E, which is education or expertise. I mean, that's not always within your control because you need the M, you need the money. But I would always have thought, I would always put education first when it comes to my priorities in a year. That's because, that's just my opinion. I think education is the key to life, and it was always a priority for me. So, when it came to capital investment into education, I would always prioritize education first. Before buying a car or whatever, I was okay, constantly year on year upskill, whatever money it takes. I would borrow money so I could pay 2,000 or 3,000 euro for different diplomas. For the SIPI, I borrowed money, because I know that investment, that long-term investment, will pay dividends in the marketplace, the work marketplace. You will be seen as more valuable the more education you have and the more you can offer value in the workplace, or in the marketplace rather. And then the final one, status. Yeah, status is a weird one because objectively we all know what a high status individual is. If you think of Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos, we know why they have high status. Or if you think, for example, of like politicians or sports people or like generally celebrities, we all collectively understand why they have status. And then kind of closer to home, the people we surround ourselves with, subjectively, we may attribute status to certain people depending on our own upbringing, education, etc. So for me, for example, I give more credence to academics because I believe in academia. Whereas if you don't come from an academic background, you may think that all professors and lecturers are quacks and they just do their abstract reasoning locked away in a room with no real life experience. That may be your opinion. Or if you come from a medical background, you may give more credence to the words of doctors. If you come from a legal background, you give more credence to lawyers, etc., etc. It depends what your background is, and that's status. But status can definitely be earned, I think. You don't necessarily have to be from a wealthy family to earn status. There's so many people who've, made their own way into the status sphere. And yeah, so I think that's definitely within your control. But of course, you need the other MILE to ultimately, as it says here, leverage connections, utilize unique insights, capitalize on timing and location. These advantages can significantly influence strategic decisions, market positioning, and ultimately success. Okay, so in the book, they give an interesting case study of an example of an unfair advantage. So Snapchat's Evan Spiegel illustrates how an unfair advantage can propel individuals to success. So Spiegel's background gave him confidence and behavioral effectiveness, contributing to Snapchat's success story alongside his brilliant execution and innovation. So just to give you a backstory into that. So Spiegel was born in LA to two lawyers, John Spiegel and Melissa Ann Thomas. And he grew up in California. He went to high school in Santa Monica, and then he attended Stanford. He's also a frat boy. He's actually married to Miranda Kerr. That's crazy. In April 2011, he proposed an app with an ephemeral messaging. Ephemeral.
How's it spelled?
Like epiphany. Ephemeral.
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 E-P-H-I-M-E-R.
No, E-M-E-R-A-L.
Ephemeral.
Ephemeral. What does that mean?
Can I give me context?
Ephemeral messaging as a product design. Let's just look that up. Ephemeral. Mobile to mobile transmission of multimedia messages that automatically disappear from the recipient's screen. Oh, like that's Snapchat. Later that year, Spiegel worked with fellow Stanford classmates Bobby Murphy and Reggie Brown to launch a prototype of this concept called Peekaboo, which they later renamed as Snapchat. The app's popularity grew significantly, and in 2012, Spiegel left Stanford to focus on Snapchat shortly before completing his degree. So I guess the question is, why does this individual have an unfair advantage? Number one, he was born into wealth. Number two, he was born into education. Number three, he was born in LA. Number four, he went to Stanford. Number five, he was exposed to other people who have all those things as well. So the effort gets compounded. He also had status because of his parents. But at the same time, he and his fellow founders, Murphy and Brown, did come up with a very innovative idea. Okay, so this story underpins the importance of acknowledging and leveraging one's unique advantages while also recognizing the role of luck and circumstance. So, for example, if these people hadn't been in LA, hadn't observed, the culture, hadn't the time, or didn't have the resources to build Snapchat, who knows, we might not have had it today. It highlights the need for aspiring founders to identify their gaps and find ways to compensate, turning adversity into opportunity and framing their unique traits as assets in their entrepreneurial journey. So the moral of the story is, when you are starting off in anything, you have to acknowledge that there are some things you don't have, but there's actually a lot you do have. And what you do have has to be your unique selling point, rather than chasing what you don't have. A lot of people message me and they're like, how can I be more attractive to an employer? But I think the best thing to do is double down on what you have. And, if it's education, if education's your thing, get more education. If it's, the fact that you're really good at a sport, it's really important that you're able to showcase that and kind of have an all-rounded personality. Because you never know, if you do sport, or that might entice the person who's interviewing you because maybe they play the same sport as you. You never know, you could get lucky. So yeah, I think we can't underestimate the role luck plays in our success. And if you ever hear anybody and they're saying, oh, I'm a self-made person, or I clawed my way from the bottom to the top. Yes, they did, but they didn't do it alone. There was many things contributing to that success. Anyway, I hope that was interesting, and I hope you find what your unfair advantage is, and I will see you in the next one.